I started this painting by doing a thin wash of paint over some simple, already established outlines. Once the wash was dry, I started removing areas to pull highlights out of the shadows. To remove the paint, I used a bamboo skewer, my fingers, and a stippling paintbrush. Once I had some basic shapes in place, I went over the edges with opaque black paint to define the outline of the figure, and I added more detail as I went. And here's where I took a break and forgot to turn the camera back on while I was doing the most important part, which was her face. Oh well. When I got the painting to a good stopping point, I put the glass into the kiln. Firing the glass makes the paint permanent and allows me to add more layers of paint without messing up the work I had previously done. Back at it again with more fine details and more shadows. You can see that her face and hair have progressed quite a bit. Later, after I've had a chance to see all the colors of glass together, I'll add some more color to her skin and her dress. Once I liked where she was at, I put her away and started working on the tiger. Starting with a layer of shading wasn't working for me on this big, ambiguous shape, so instead I decided to flesh out the line work and outlines and really define the parts of the tiger's body. And now we start the stripes. This was my first time painting a tiger, so I was really relying heavily on the placement of the stripes from the reference picture. I chose this piece of glass because I liked the way the orange went from dark on the back of the tiger to light around the face and chest, but now I really needed to use the stripes to suggest the three-dimensional shape of the tiger. fired the stripes overnight to fix them in place, so I could work on a shading layer next. Like before, I applied a thin wash of dark paint, and then I started pulling out highlights to suggest the contours of the tiger's body. As you can see in the top of the frame, I've got some reference pictures of poppies I'm working from, but I'm really just kind of improvising them as I go. I actually went back and repainted a few of these before I fired them because the shapes just weren't working well visually. By this time, I've at least started on all the colors of glass I'll be using, and I want to see how they're looking together, so I've laid them all out on the light board. Once I've done everything I want to do with the paint, it's time to lead the glass. Lead comes in long strips with a cross-section that looks like an H shape. The glass sits in the channels and is held together by the lead. This part of the process is a lot of measuring, cutting, and bending, and then trying to get the glass to sit where it should be. Oh, here's Moon Cookie. As you can see, I sometimes use a rubber mallet to get the glass pieces into place, but obviously this has to be done really carefully or you risk breaking the glass. I think everyone who works with glass has learned this lesson at least once. As I was working with it, I realized I was not liking the grain border that I had, so I swapped out the glass with the red-purple color that I had used for the poppies. And now it's time to solder the lead together. We've got the soldering iron, a spool of solder, which is made from lead and tin, a wire brush to clean the lead before it's soldered, and finally, some flux in paste form. The solder lets off some fumes as it melts, so I wear a little breathing protection too. The first thing to do is scrub any oxidation off the lead with the wire brush. I'm only soldering the joints, so I just focus on the area I'm working with. It's important to work in a ventilated room because, as I mentioned, this process does let off some fumes. Flux paste is applied to help the solder and the lead bond to each other. Touching the iron to the solder makes a bead of solder, but you really have to press the iron into it to smooth it out and really bond the metals together. Bear in mind you can't apply heat for too long or it will melt the lead or crack the glass, neither of which you want. repeat this process on each joint, and then flip the whole piece over and do it again on the back side. Once the lead is all in place, the last step in construction is to apply the cement. This is a putty made of mineral oil and chalk that holds the glass firmly inside the lead channels, and it makes the window weatherproof if you're planning on using it in a building. The cement is pressed into all the gaps between the glass and the lead, using your fingers, a brush, whatever method works for you. It's a hard and messy process, but it seals the glass and it really adds stability to the window. Once the cement is all in place, you can apply powdered chalk to it to speed up the curing process. Once it's curing, let it sit for at least 24 hours. After it's cured and all the excess is cleaned away, I put on a black patina. Lead blackens naturally over time, but I really don't like the bright solder look, so I want to darken it up as much as possible. Some people like the metal look and will even patina it with a brass or copper color to make it extra bright, but I like the lines to just disappear. And here's the finished piece. Thank you for watching.